panel discussion, Passion Meets Performance. We are so excited that you have joined us. And I'm not alone today. I'm here with my wonderful colleagues, Annika Lang and Martina Moreno Hofer. I will start sharing my screen with you. We are from GENYXZ. Our motto is, the future is young and old. In fact, we are a social impact initiative founded around about 1.5 years ago, actually. Time passes by. Well, and we aim to bring generations together. We have different formats, which are digital and also analog. And we also have 2 apps coming out soon. We are so excited about it. One is the reverse mentoring app, where we bring together different age groups that support each other along their career. And the other one is the challenge app. Some of you might potentially already have attended one of our so-called, in a way, barcamp session or mini hackathon, where also, again, different age groups come together and work on different challenges to tackle the major problems that we have in our society. So now I would like to hand over to my colleagues, and maybe you can introduce yourselves to the audience.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, to Andrea for having us. Thank you for including us in your Joint Generations presentations, Irene. My name is Martina. I've been exposed to, let's say, the age-related issues all my life, like all of you, particularly when I started competing as an athlete at the age of 7. There, of course, I was always exposed with sort of my age peers, so to speak, but then later on, I was also joining teams where, age was more diverse. And that, of course, was something that stuck with me for the rest of my athletic career, but also when I started working while I was still studying, I ended up specializing in the combination of HR and digitalization, and worked for international corporations as well as international organizations who also did research on equal employment opportunities, ageism, and other factors that come into play when we discuss passion and meets performance. And 7 or almost 8 years ago, I founded my own business, which really addresses, how we can make digitalization and smart processes work so that they help us, whether we're just joining the workforce or already happy grandparents, still enjoying to work, how we can sort of make digitalization and processes work for all of us. And that's why I was more than happy to be welcomed by Irene at her wonderful initiative, Joint Generations, where I met Annika. So Annika, back or over to you then.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Andrea, for having us. My name is Annika. I come from the HR corner, similar to Martina, but right now I work at the intersection of HR and tech, and I've worked with all ages, with clients or colleagues. So our topic, age diversity, is something very, very close to my heart, which is why I am a part of Joint Generations to make further steps into age diversity and anti-age discrimination. Irene, what about you?
I've already introduced myself, right? So if you want to, you can move forward.
Yes. So our vision in Joint Generations is that we want to build a world in which all generations can work together to shape a more sustainable and livable future based on our 3 pillars, which are respect, trust, and communication. Our mission is to build bridges, to overcome obstacles, to foster sustainable dialogues and collaboration, as well as to create transformation in thinking and actions. And this is what we do. So to warm up, we would like to involve you, and we have a Mentimeter survey for you. I will post the direct link here in the chat as well. So you can also grab your phones and scan the QR code or enter with the code on menti.com. I just posted a direct link in the chat, and we would love to know what do you associate with ageism? So what do you associate with discrimination based on age? So do we give you some time, Irene? How much time do you think?
Or let's give them like 2.5 minutes around.
All right.
Between 2 and 3 minutes.
Yeah. Be fast. So just don't think a lot about it. Just dump the first things that come to your mind on Mentimeter. We would very much appreciate your opinion and your view on that topic, because, well, ageism can be very diverse. Whether if you're young or old, you have different experiences with it. Yeah, so just let us know your opinions.
Once you are ready, guys, just put a hands up or a thumbs up or show us that you are ready in the chat. That would help. So Jack, Susan, Sabrina, if you are ready with it. Just then Christian, just put a thumbs up or I'm done. Thank you.
I can see some are still typing. So we have half a minute to go.
I see some thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, I hope you use the chance to share us your thoughts, and then I will hand over to my colleague Martina.
And by the way, I know that you might be very, very curious to know the results, but they will be presented by the end of our session by Annika again. So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
And while Annika is thankfully working on putting the results together, let's move on to what science says about ageism, or age matters rather. Some of you might know it, but I think it's also good to know, while we can have our own interpretation of often about ageism, that scientifically the actual age of a person doesn't have no impact whatsoever on their occupational performance, and there's no link between that, meaning that it doesn't matter how young or how experienced you are. You can perform given, if we assume that there's no other impairments or external conditions that make it impossible for you to put in your part. But before continuing with our, thoughts and further, quotes, I'd invite you to share your definition of ageism and your experience with it with us. So feel free to unmute your mics and give us your own definition of ageism or share your experience. Go ahead.
Go on, Jack, if you would like to say your definition. Jack, you would like to share? Yeah, we couldn't hear you. I saw you were on.
No, I was trying to key in some of the words onto the link you gave me just now. So am I supposed to do that or share here?
We welcome your live statement if you don't mind, as we literally speak.
Okay. Mine is more to generation gap, the young and wise, future, knowledge, passion. I've already written all those on the link given to me just now.
Thank you, Jay.
Does somebody else want to contribute his or her thoughts, either on Jack's definition or your personal one?
Say, Susan, Sabrina, would you like to share? Or you can type it in the chat also. If not, then we can just go on and wait for the chats. If they have some opinions, they will put it in the chat.
Sure. And then we'll try to blend them in as we move forward. So maybe, Irene, can I ask you to put up the next slide? So maybe that might inspire others to chime in.
Yes, sure. Just a
Thank
second,
you.
please.
Thank you for putting this up again. And yeah, I don't know whether you have experienced it personally or know somebody, discrimination based on age is really widespread. And at least in our neck of the woods in the center of Europe, a lot of people just tend to focus ageism or discrimination against a certain age group towards more experienced people. But in reality, you can also experience age discrimination at a much younger age or somewhere in between. That is something we at Joint Generations really want to put the focus on. So it's not something of your own age or a certain age group. It can affect all of us. For example, you might be either too young or being told that you are too young to do something, or somebody might question a person's ability just because this person has been around the block a couple of times, or just, by nature, because we all age day by day, thankfully. If we're healthy, then it really sort of impairs everybody. It might sort of either cause a person to just retreat and be less sharing or doubt his or her own abilities, or somebody else might wrongly put somebody in a box just because of the other person's age. And that's really a shame and a pity, because we can benefit from the combination and from opening our minds for people's abilities regardless of their age. So on that note, I'll happily hand over to you, Irene.
Yes.
And
now, dear audience, thank you, Martina. Now, we want to get you actively involved, dear audience. We want to discuss with you our experiences that we have gained so far, some sentences, expressions, terms that came across when we dealt with ageism. So the first one is, only young people can develop something this innovative. So to give you a bit of a context, I was sitting in the jury board of a startup competition, and two siblings, they just presented their fantastic application, and everyone was so excited and really liked it. And then my neighboring jury member, he said like, this is so great, but only young people are capable of developing something innovative like this. And I was a bit confused, because he himself, he was approximately something between 55 and 60 years old. So I was very, very astonished about what he just said. So my question to you would be, how do you feel about that? Is it true? Is it not true? Is it something in between? Have you gained similar experiences? Only young people can develop something this innovative.
Okay, GENYXZ is in between. And for the earlier, Susan was writing for ageism. I think it's not about how old you are, it's about your attitude towards how you treat people. So those are the two comments that we have for right now. And from my side, I think it's, yeah, I don't feel good about this because I don't believe in this. I think we can keep the inner child go late in the life. Even if you are 80, you can be super innovative if you keep that alive.
What do Annika and Martina think?
Yeah, this is actually something I also struggled with in my career. As I told you in the beginning, I was also working with a lot of older colleagues who were right before retirement, and maybe it wasn't this specific scenario, but of course I realized that they were not really that into innovating their own workspace. Which was also, but this has multiple reasons or possible reasons. On the one hand, they took their work over from somebody else and innovated it already to the most extent possible, and then they just handed it over to somebody else. But it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, if you hand something over to somebody else in terms of just daily work. It doesn't matter if you hand it to somebody young. It could be also someone in their mid-40s, or which is not old, or in their also right before retirement. Everyone has a different approach to doing work, and everyone has also different experiences which can benefit an innovation process, in my opinion. Martina, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll just pick on what you just said, Annika, and add a different or an additional perspective rather, because while listening to you, I just remembered a professional business partner that I have who got together with 3 of his age peers. I believe they were in the late 40s, early 50s at the time, and they decided to found a company they would have liked to work for when they were younger or entering the workforce. So let's say you had a group of people, and they also had then females involved. But anyway, age group plus minus 50, and they did manage to set up a company where young people, by the way, in a hot market where they had big, well-established companies competing for the same talent. But the youngsters decided to join this new company because they felt understood. And they got together, they joined the company, they have a high retention rate. And that for me is also an example that shows you can be innovative. And not only did those quote unquote older guys get together to found the company, the products they launched were super innovative. And for me are a perfect example that the age doesn't really matter. How innovative a person can be. It's just about whether you have the right ideas or not.
I'm really, really grateful that both of you agree that this is nonsense. So in fact, what really shocked me when I heard that is that how can someone possibly think that someone who's older cannot be innovative? So it tells a lot about our society, doesn't it? So I'm asking myself, how come we have this perception? Anyone an idea? Why do we have this perception that someone who's older or old can't be innovative anymore?
Maybe it's also,
I don't know how,
yeah. Maybe it's also because of, sorry.
Well, I grew up differently, so I would never think about something like that. So go ahead, please, Annika.
Yeah, maybe it's also the media depiction of innovative startups in Germany or in general. It's always just young guys, Eurocentric, doing something very cool and innovative. And they also, I think it's also statistically proven that young men get the most funding. So this might be one of the reasons why we have this perception or why people have this perception in their minds.
Mm.
Yeah, but otherwise, to be innovative, you also have to understand a problem, which takes some experience. So I would also say the opposite is true. You need experience to finally realize what to do better, to be more innovative.
I feel you touch on two very important aspects. I will first start with the last one. You said like you need experience to be innovative, right? On the other hand side, one could also argue you need creativity to be innovative, right? Can be both. So still, I would say like even if you're old, you can be creative. I guess you also agree.
Absolutely. And I think innovation comes from combining what is already known or old experiences with new ideas. And that, again, to me, still doesn't mean that we can put a tag to the age. So it's, I think, like I said, the combination of both across all age groups involved, because a good idea should not be put in a box or discredited just because of the person contributed, the contributor's age, rather. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then
how about
also,
Jack and the other listeners? Do you have something to add? Just want to make sure that you also feel included.
I think I just had one more example. Like we had someone coming to, I have these entrepreneurship meetups, and then she was sharing that the family is picturing her sitting in the corner, not doing anything, not going out, and she's like around, I believe she's between 60 and 70. So they are picturing her in a safe place, not venturing anymore, not wanting anymore, and just keeping her safe. I believe that's perception of the family itself, that older people are there only to take care of themselves and kept safe. It's also something that can contribute to this situation.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at the part that in Malaysia, we have this university for the third age. Some of us probably have not demonstrate our full talent enough. So some of us are in this so-called in the environment where you're safe to innovate and be creative. And recently I worked with a very experienced speaker. She's in her 70s. She's starting something really pretty huge on women in development, so-called big conference in southern part of Malaysia. So to me, it's like age is truly a number. If you do not make it as an issue, it's supposed to be a value add because of experience. I'm in my 57. All the time I thought that I'm actually so-called the word old or matured. When I meet the 70 and the 90, then I realize I'm only a baby, you see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot for your great input. There was also another aspect that Annika mentioned, which is media representation. And I think this is one major aspect that form our perception of age, that creates some sort of prejudices, stereotypes, right? And there's a lot to do and to improve. Of course, if I always depict young people as being dynamic and fresh-minded and successful, and older people more like, okay, drinking coffee, having their tea time, for example, of course, we start thinking, right, okay, when you're 60, your career ends, so to say. Well, thank you for your contribution. I would like to move on to the next quote. Oh, just because I'm young, I'm not allowed to take responsibility. I guess, Annika, you also talked about it at the beginning, right? Seems as if you have heard it a lot of times. Maybe you can tell us what you feel about that one. You're speechless. I can understand, yes. Where to start? You're frozen.
Yeah,
I know.
Just for the record, I'm now 28 years old, so I would still consider myself to be part of the younger generation. So, well, maybe it's pretty common in Germany that experience is such a big value. And with experience, I mean not necessarily different types of things that you have experience in, but more how much time did you spend doing the specific thing. And it's not really considered if you did it extraordinary well, but just how much time you put in. And this is really something where a lot of companies miss out on young, super interested and passionate people who would love to take responsibility, but the thinking of the management or of the companies is just too conservative to give them a chance, maybe. I also experienced it multiple times. Or maybe there's some fear that there will be mistakes, but everyone does mistakes, even old people or more experienced people do make mistakes. So yeah, this hits home, this statement.
So I feel here, like thinking back about our definition, right? Most of the time when people think about ageism, they only consider people that are older, but in fact, also younger people can be discriminated, right?
Absolutely.
So, and you also mentioned, Annika, that you feel or had the expression that it's particularly an issue in Germany in terms of giving young people responsibility. But in this case, I would disagree because, for example, if you look at China, you got to have a certain age to be promoted as a leader, right? Yeah. And I can talk about my experience when I was younger and a fresher from university, and I started working in the automotive industry. I had to deal a lot with Chinese suppliers, and most of the time they didn't want to talk to me. They said like, oh, I want to talk with your boss and so on. I said like, yes, in this case, I'm the boss, although I'm not officially the leader, but I have all the decision-making rights. But then he talked to my boss and supervisor and said, oh yeah, but she's too young, she's inexperienced and so on. And I also felt a bit discriminated, you know?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And in such situations, or also in conversations with hiring managers, I always also remind them that there are constellations, or we were also part of things that were new to all of us, regardless of our age. Specifically, when I was a student, I started working for a network provider for cell phones, and that was new at the time. So it didn't matter whether I was 18 as a young student or whether we had the 40-year-olds or the 35-year-olds, which I at that time considered to be super old, almost twice my age, and I've passed that mark by a couple of years already. So that was also something that I find interesting today now, if you think of app development, software development. But if you are sort of old enough, like myself, to remember, when you entered the work or look at the jobs and technologies that were around 20 years ago, and I upset a colleague when I was doing a presentation, say, 20 years ago, and she just, if a look could kill, she said, why are you saying that? I said, well, I'm just talking about the experience. Yeah, but it makes us sound old. I said, no, experienced. And it is a reminder that we all once started, and regardless of our age, we might be exposed to something new. And if we then don't draw on the talent or the latest knowledge that somebody might bring, like, I don't know, Annika just described, then we deprive our whole company, our clients, ourselves from something very important. And that's why it's really important that we sort of open up and get rid of those, stereotypes and limiting beliefs.
Yeah, can I add on to
Go ahead.
Annika, Martina, and Irene? I'm coming from the education background. So we have a lot of students, we need to place them for a job. And during the placement, we have to give them and send them for internship. Even for the internship, the students don't qualify because they are not able to express themselves for a short interview. You see, so therefore, when many MNC, multinational companies, or even the GLC, they're looking for candidates who are in the middle age, not too young or not too old, and that goes with the salary as well. Only for the small firms, they employ young students or youngsters to gain experience from the small firm, and from there they move on to a bigger firm. So during the stage of the small firm, they have to learn many things. But these students, sorry to say, they are not so committed. They feel that the salary is too low. They are working with one or two staffs, and they are always looking for something very high, failing to understand their experience is insufficient. So that could be one more challenge that the younger generation has to face. You see, so in Malaysia, HR department has a great role, has an important role to play, especially for headhunting. So we from the college, we train our students before they go into any job placement. So that is also one strength that we can get the youngsters to engage with the right job, with the field that they have studied for. Some of them would have done some engineering course, but they have to go and work in a small firm, which is not their nature of education. But it's okay for them to learn initially, but they do not want to. Straight away, they want to do the engineering job. Straight away, they want the salary scale to be, within a range of a good range, which is not possible. Therefore, we do have a lot of unemployment issues here.
I totally agree, because I always say to youngsters, just having completed their studies, their apprenticeship and so on, first start to learn. When you enter an organization, ask questions, and do not complain about the systems and structures. You don't know what kind of challenges the people have been facing in the past, right? Yes. Try to learn. Don't think that you can do everything. Because I've also lectured at different universities in the German-speaking area. I always say, like, what you learn at university, it's very idealistic. The reality looks totally different, and you learn by applying what you've learned under different circumstances. And that's what it's to first start to learn and appreciate what has been done in the past.
Yes, right? Well said.
You're welcome. So I would like to hand over to my colleague, Martina. She will be discussing with us together the next two quotes.
Yeah, for example, that older people have no clue about digitization or digitization. That is something. Yeah, because I always confuse people, because whichever expression you use, and that's beyond age groups, by the way. So that is really something. If you remember the company I was mentioning that was founded by people who wanted to open up opportunities also in terms of software development and digital apps and all the rest. So that actually shows to me that older people do have a clue about digitalizing processes, developing apps, you name it. And at the same time, coming back to Jack's point, I think if they are put on teams where youngsters can join forces in terms of experience, learn from each other in all kinds of directions, then we can make this work for us, rather than having somebody tell us that you're too young, too old, to whatever, to be exposed to digital processes or whatever comes to mind. Because that's also why because also Irene said, watch the intern. Exactly, Andrea, just looking at your comment in the chat, is I also remember when I was working as an external consultant for a company developing software solutions and embedded systems that are integrated in cars. They had, now she's a manager by now, but back in the day, she was one of the few women who joined at a young age, and everybody was like, let's see how long she lasts. And she's been with the company for 20 years, which is unusual, given how highly demanded software development experts are. But she would be considered old by those standards. Or what do we do with her knowledge? Is she supposed to be given a golden or at least a silver handshake? Sorry, thanks for sticking around for 20 years, but now it's time for something new? Or should we draw on her resources to help the youngsters, or also young in experience? Because as Annika said before, you might be young by age, but more experienced in a certain field. Why don't we just, make ends meet and are flexible? And everybody talks about agility and whatnot, and design thinking and open-mindedness. But in terms of that quote, it seems to go in the wrong direction. I don't know, Jack, do you want to say something, or Sabrina, or of course my colleagues from Joint Generations?
No, I don't quite agree. Maybe in my position, I'm already 64 years old now, but I've learned quite a lot about all this digital technology, because I want to keep up with the younger generation, or even with the latest technology era. So for those who are not familiar, they have to learn, because after this, everything is going to be digitalized. For instance, going to the bank, no more physically. It's all using the handphone to make payment. Even they go to the grocery shop, they cannot use this all cashless. They have to use the handphone to make the payment. So slowly things are changing, and we as a baby boomers, we are also learning along. It's just a matter of time. And also besides that, when it comes to work, office work, I'm sure the younger generations are much efficient. They have everything in their fingertips. They are faster than us. That I agree. Otherwise, for the older people, we have to catch up with them, at least until when there's not too much of confusion, meaning that basic digitalization has to be learned. We have to learn the basic, which is very essential. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks.
My side will be lots of my work are not digitalized, but when I need any of it, I outsource from either my children or the business partners. So many a time I do a very minimum so-called digitization. On top of that, if it actually has been working, this is also a blessing in disguise, because number one is outsourced. Number two is at least the minimum of Zoom, emails, and all the very basic. It's just not. It's not up to like Python and all those stuff, so-called latest and update that I probably could not catch up on time. So I'm glad that I'm always working in a very good group of community, and then also they know my strength and they also know my weaknesses. I basically let them know that is who I am and who I'm not. So that is a lot of clarity, a lot of support. They actually tap on my brain juice because of my business contact and connections, whom I am able to get for them, and how much finance they want. All these are things that I'm actually good at. So this is how I take it on. Thank you.
Thank you, and also to Jack for your wonderful contributions. I think that's two statements that demonstrate how we could make things work and benefit from all of that. Thank you.
I would also like to add something, because I feel this comment is pretty harsh. The old people don't have a clue about digitization. That's pretty straightforward. And I would say straight away, no, that's not true at all. Because I agree with Martina and Jack, and I want to emphasize on what Jack said. Everyone can learn everything. And of course, organizations, society have to ask themselves, so why is it that we think that older people don't have a clue about digitization? Can be to a certain extent right, but it has nothing to do with that ability at all. It's all about the context where they grew up with, right? Of course, if in the future we have many applications dealing with artificial intelligence, I might be one of them in the future who has to learn how to deal with those applications. And the same thing applies now for people nowadays who are 50, 60, 70 years old. Because my nephew, my youngest siblings, they naturally grew up with all those applications, with the internet, the smartphone, whatsoever. And that's the only difference. So lifelong learning is so essential, and companies still need to invest also in older employees to keep the knowledge within the company. And looking in terms of demographic change, there's no other option at all.
Thumbs up times 100.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to move forward with the next?
Yes, please. If you'd be so kind to pull up the next statement, I would appreciate it. Yeah, that actually ties in to what has been said before. I'm just quoting and then rather put it in phrase it in a question, but the quote is, "We need a young person on our founding team that looks good in front of investors." Now, like Dan said, and you probably also know somebody who's been exposed to that. And there again, it's young people. It can also be the older people or somewhere in between, a generation that you're lacking on your team. I have a problem with that quote if it's just, to show that, on the surface, on the outside, you put a check, you met a requirement. But how about, for example, if you then have the company set up or been granted a funding, what's next? And that's, I think, what matters most, at least to me, that we really walk our talk, that it's not when it's a young person or somebody else, that we just put somebody forward where it looks good, where, the spotlight is on. But the key or the deal breaker for me is, how do these people experience it in real life, at work? And this is where we experience, or when we can show that we're really serious about, age inclusion or other matters. But how about you? What's your take on that quote?
Since Annika, go ahead. Carry on.
I think that this quote kind of proves what the main perception of young people in the public is. But it also proves that that old people can be, old always in quotation marks, that old people can also be innovative. If they think they just need a young person to, I don't know, look more presentable to investors. Yeah, it's really what we see in the media, what is shown to us on social media, and Shark Tank, all these formats where you have people pitching their ideas. And yeah, I think society still has a way to go to not just represent young people, or to make young the gold standard of being good or innovative. Yeah, Jack, what did you want to add?
Actually, for my experience, I will never give in for my age. I'm still thinking the youngsters have a long way to go. For example, I work with a checklist without fail. I have to have a checklist so that I don't make mistake for the following days, any meetings or even presentation. I'll teach the younger staffs to use the checklist, but they do not want to use it. Anyway, there was one incident that the following day, it was we were running a program. I prepared my checklist while the staff who was helping me out, she did not have the checklist. And I've already trained them, but they just simply do not want to use it. I was just waiting for the day where I can confront her and put her in her place. So it didn't take too long. Within a week, this incident happened. For the following program, the PA system is very important, right? And the unit, the PA system unit is there, but the cable was not there. And she went around looking. We have 3 floors to go and look for the cable. So I just waited for her to bring it, look for the cable and bring it and fix it. Unfortunately, the particular cable did not fit into the PA system. So she was so like nervous and she started sweating and panting. I let her go through this experience. I want her to go through this so that she will remember for the rest of the time. Yeah. So she got something. She didn't say sorry to me until later when everything's over. She came and asked me, how do I prepare the checklist? I said, now you know how important the checklist is. Okay, I'll teach you later. That is one incident. Besides that I don't know if Anika will agree with me. They are not efficient enough. If you give them any assignment, they are not going for it as to get it done soon. They will take their own sweet time. So much so, we all know that many of the office concept has changed. It's no more the open concept where the boss can watch all the staff sitting and working. Now it's more casual. They have the sofa, they have the pantry. Everything is so close for them to, easy around. And these things are like doesn't give a good ethic. So I feel the youngsters still have to learn from the oldest. See, like I go into the conference room, I know how to write. I have the skills in shorthand. I can write the notes very fast, whereas the younger ones, they'll be writing, they'll miss out some of the points. So I'll tell them how to do it. So I feel that we are still the strong, and the young generation has to learn from the older generation, whatever it is, how highly they have qualified, or even with the digital skills, they need other basic attitude. They need a lot of basic discipline and attitude. That's what I would like to share.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting. So what I would also really like to add, I totally agree with you. But what I found pretty striking about this comment is, why do people think they can only get invested when they have young people in their funding team? Right? To give you a bit of a context, there were 2 founders, one 46, 48, 2 years ago. They came up to me and said, like, when can you please help us find a co-founder for a team? But it should be someone very young, maybe you. I said, no. But still, then I asked them, so why? You are also young? Because for me, I didn't consider their age so much, because nowadays I feel like I know a lot of people who are 50 years old. Sometimes you think the way they act, behave, and appear like they were mid-30, right? And then I said, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that investor would reject you just because of your age. And let me tell you something. Since ever then, I asked around in my network, since ever then, I have decided to take out this expression, I can't imagine it, out of my vocabulary. Definitely. Because they totally, I think there was no exception. They said, yes, I would rather invest in a startup where the founders are 20 years, 25 years old, because they work their ass off. They are creative. They have drive and they have passion. And I was very, very surprised, because then you might claim that the opposite doesn't apply for the older generation. And it was really sad to say, right? But here again, I totally agree with Annika and Martina. It's a question about our society. You know, there's something totally going wrong in our society if we always think in terms of age, right? In particular, in contexts where we talk about performance, we talk about career, we talk about the future. It's so unnecessary, but still we do it, right? And it's something that we need to take home with us and think about it, right? So it can also be the other way around in terms of younger people, that we have a certain perception, okay?
Yeah, can I just add on one more thing? When it comes to the year-end appraisal, I don't think so. The younger ones are falling into any of their highest categories, you know. it is still the middle age or the older person falls in a better position than the younger ones. So the KPI is also important for the younger generation. That's all.
Martina, do you want to hand over to Annika, or do you want to say something to what just
No, I just wanted to thank Jack and everybody else who's contributed so far, and pass the baton to Annika to continue. Thank you.
All right. Last statement before we will talk about the results of our Mentimeter survey. So this might sound a little bit similar to some ideas we've heard while discussing the other statements. It takes young people to come up with new ideas. So maybe I can also start off with a kind of personal statement. Well, I had the pleasure to take over two positions in my last companies from two men who were retiring. And of course, they had their ways to do things, and it worked out really well. But as a rookie, you also want to give it your own touch a little bit, and you also realize that some things might go better when they're done differently. So in a way, I see a shimmer of truth behind that statement, but it is by no means a general truth. So of course, old people, in my opinion, can come up with new ideas, especially if they have the experience that it takes to consider all the difficulties and stakes of a problem. So yeah, I would love to hear your opinions and experiences. Maybe you have similar or different experience than me. Maybe also Irene has some experience she'd like to share from her startup.
Yes, anyone, if you would like to share, because we have around 5 minutes. After that, we have to start with Kiran, or you can share the result of the first assignment, maybe.
Okay, great. Yes, in fact, I just want to give 2 cents on that. I would just simply answer, it takes young and old people to come up with new ideas. And I guess Jack already correctly pointed it out. As she aforementioned, on the one hand side, we need people with experiences who know how to, in particular, which is very important for entrepreneurs, to know how to deal with challenges, not to give up, to stay motivated, and maybe also to learn not to make the same mistakes that has been done previously. So it's very, very valuable to have both generations. And since we're running out of time, right, I would like to briefly tackle on the results. You'll be surprised, by the way. Let's see. So we have 2 comments here. What do you associate with ageism? Too young and too experienced. I guess that's what
that nailed it, huh?
Maybe it was the same person who entered this, right? Maybe the one who entered those expressions or terms may want to speak up and talk to us.
Andrea, thank you for that.
Yes, I think we were talking about this earlier with Irene at the interview, that many people, both generations are struggling just from different things. Like the youngs are too young, too unexperienced, and the old are too experienced. And I had an interview with someone who is, I believe he's already over 60, and he told me he tried to get back to the marketplace. Already he's in the age when he's considered, retired, but he just wanted to get back, and everyone was politely telling him that you are too experienced, and no one was telling them the age was the problem. They were just saying like, no, you are too experienced, we cannot hire you. So it's kind of like an excuse for people, the too young and also the too experienced, to send away people instead of, you know, telling the truth why they are really saying no to them, and just even getting rid of the labels, you know, and hiring them for who they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yes, I totally agree. Too experienced just means, in other words, too expensive. Okay? You're so experienced, so well equipped, so skilled, you are just too expensive. Okay? Thank you so much, everyone, for being here for this valuable and fruitful conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. And as you can feel, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to explore further. Thanks again to our lovely host, Andrea, for the invitation. And of course, my lovely and fabulous colleagues, Annika and Martina. Happy to do it again with you in the future, if you're still willing to do so.
Absolutely.
And Jack, yes.
Thank you for everybody's contributions. It was really great because you also made the conversation more interested and fun.
Thank you very much. Just before I stop the live stream, if you would like to share where, yes, exactly that, where people can reach you.
Follow us, connect with us. I guess Annika and Martina are also open for connections. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can look at our website. Of course, although I have to admit it's in German first. In the future, you will do it also in English. But however, you can already connect with us, in particular on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day and the next session. Thank you.
Girls. Bye.
Take care.